Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! In the dimly lit kitchen, where shadows danced as if hiding bad news, a tower of medical bills stood as a constant, haunting reminder. The morning sun, struggling through the cloud of dust on the blinds, illuminated the table, showcasing the grim tally of medical expenses. Another bill joined the ominous collection, blaring its final notice warning, an exclamation of urgency in blood-red ink. His exhausted gaze fell upon the bill, and he ran a weary hand through his short blonde locks.
"Unfathomable,"
he whispered at the sight of the amount, his voice engulfed by the weight of the debt. Cillian knew that sum, an intimidating $28,000, could decimate the meager savings they'd managed to scrape together over the years. Recalling his mother's battle with cancer, Cillian remembered the countless treatments that chipped away at their finances, and the insurance company's maze of loopholes, leaving only a fraction of the support they desperately needed. The job listings blurred together after hours of searching. His psychology degree hadn't exactly opened the career doors he'd hoped for, especially not in this economy. The phone rang, its shrill tone cutting through the silence. Probably another collection agency. He let it go to voicemail. "Mr. O'Connor, this is Providence Hospital's billing department. We're calling regarding your outstanding balance of—" He slammed the laptop shut and buried his face in his hands. Something had to give. Later that evening, scrolling through research study listings at the university where he'd once been a student, an unusual posting caught his eye. Paid research opportunity. Long-term immersive gender expression study seeking male participants aged 25-35. Compensation. $50,000. Contact Dr. Vanessa Martinez, Department of Psychological and Behavioral Sciences. $50,000. The number glowed on the screen like a beacon. That would cover the medical debt with enough left over to breathe again. He clicked for more details, scanning the description. 6-month residential study examining psychological effects of prolonged cross-gender presentation. Participants must consent to living exclusively as feminine-presenting individuals for the duration of the study. All necessities provided. Must be in good health with no history of gender dysphoria. Cillian's finger hovered over the mouse. Was he really considering this? 6 months of his life to wipe away the debt. 6 months living as a woman. Before he could overthink it, he clicked apply and began filling out the form. 3 days later, Cillian sat in an austere office on the university's research campus, his knee bouncing nervously beneath dark blue slacks. The nameplate on the desk read, Dr. Vanessa Martinez, Ph.D. The door opened, and a woman in her early 40s entered. Her dark hair was pulled back in a severe bun, and rectangular glasses sat on her nose. She wore a crisp white lab coat over a black pencil skirt and burgundy blouse. "Mr. O'Connor," she said, extending her hand. "Thank you for your interest in our study." Her grip was firm, businesslike. She settled into her chair and pulled his application from a folder. "Your preliminary screening shows you're an ideal candidate, physically speaking. However, I need to be absolutely clear about what participation entails. This is not a typical research study." "I understand," Cillian replied, trying to keep his voice steady. 6 months living as a woman. Dr. Martinez nodded. "Yes, but more specifically, you would be adopting a completely feminine identity. We're calling this identity Catalina. You would dress, speak, and behave as Catalina at all times. No breaks, no exceptions. We provide the clothing, living quarters, and a stipend for incidentals, plus the full compensation upon completion." She slid a thick document across the desk. "The full study parameters are detailed here. I encourage you to read it carefully before making your decision. Cillian flipped through the contract, catching phrases like full immersion, psychological monitoring, and controlled social interactions. Why this research? He asked, looking up. What's the purpose? My work focuses on gender identity and expression, she explained, leaning forward slightly. We know surprisingly little about the psychological effects of prolonged cross-gender expression on cisgender individuals. Some of my colleagues find my methods controversial, but I believe this immersive approach will yield valuable data on gender fluidity, social constructs, and internal identity formation. Cillian nodded slowly. And the $50,000? Paid upon successful completion of the 6-month period. Half is provided if you must withdraw for medical reasons beyond your control. She adjusted her glasses. I won't lie to you, Mr. O'Connor. This will be challenging. Your entire life will change for 6 months. But the scientific value is immense, and the compensation reflects that. Cillian thought of the bills stacked on his table, of his mother's final days, of the calls that wouldn't stop coming. When would it start? 1 week from today. We'd need that time to prepare your living quarters and wardrobe. He took a deep breath. Where do I sign? The following week passed in a blur of preparations. Cillian settled his affairs, put his few possessions in storage, and informed his limited social circle that he would be away on a research project for half a year. He told no one the specifics. On Monday morning, he arrived at the research facility with a small bag of permitted personal items. Dr. Martinez greeted him in a conference room, accompanied by 2 research assistants. Today begins your transformation into Catalina, she explained. We'll start with physical preparations, then move to your living quarters for orientation. What followed was both clinical and surreal. A stylist measured him for clothing, took detailed notes on his skin tone, and discussed makeup techniques. A voice coach recorded his speaking patterns and demonstrated feminine speech patterns. A movement specialist had him walk, sit, and gesture while taking notes. By afternoon, Cillian found himself in a well-appointed apartment within the research facility. 1 bedroom, 1 bath, a small living area, and kitchenette. The closet, however, stopped him in his tracks. Row upon row of women's clothing hung neatly categorized. Sundresses in yellow with frilly details, navy blue A-line skirts, cream-colored blouses with delicate embroidery, shoes in various styles, all carefully sized for his feet. The drawers contained everything else: lingerie, sleepwear, accessories. Dr. Martinez observed his reaction. Everything has been selected to fit you perfectly. You'll be required to dress from this wardrobe exclusively for the next 6 months. Cillian ran his fingers along a soft yellow sundress, reality crashing down. What had he gotten himself into? The bathroom contains all necessary toiletries, including makeup and skincare products. Your first session with the styling team begins in 1 hour. She handed him a small journal. You'll keep daily records of your thoughts and feelings. These are private until the conclusion of the study. She paused at the door. One more thing, Mr. O'Connor. From this moment forward, you are Catalina. Your male identity is on hold until the study concludes. The door closed, leaving Cillian alone with a closet full of women's clothes and the dawning realization of what lay ahead. That first afternoon was a crash course in femininity. The styling team, 2 women named Monica and Diane, showed no hesitation as they transformed him. The wig will only be temporary, Monica explained, fitting a long blonde hairpiece that matched his natural color but fell past his shoulders in soft waves. We'll be helping your own hair grow out over the study period. They taught him basic makeup application, how to walk in low heels, how to sit with knees together. By evening, Cillian barely recognized the person in the mirror. A nervous-looking blonde in a cream blouse and navy skirt, with subtle makeup enhancing features he'd never paid much attention to. "Remember, Catalina?" Diane said as they finished, emphasizing the name. "Practice makes perfect. Don't be too hard on yourself the first few weeks." That night, lying in bed wearing silk pajamas that felt alien against his skin, Cillian wrote in the journal, "Day 1. I don't recognize myself. The person in the mirror looks like a stranger. I keep reminding myself, 6 months, $50,000. 6 months, $50,000. The first month was the hardest. Catalina, as she forced herself to think of herself, struggled with the most basic elements of her new identity. Makeup application left her frustrated each morning. Walking in even modest heels resulted in sore feet and ankles. The constant sensation of unfamiliar clothing against her skin kept her self-conscious and awkward. 3 times weekly, she met with Dr. Martinez for evaluation sessions, sometimes with other researchers present. "How does it feel when strangers address you as a woman?" Dr. Martinez asked during week 3, her pen poised over her notepad. "Jarring," Catalina admitted, smoothing the yellow sundress over her knees. "Like they're talking to someone else and I'm just accidentally in the way."
"And when you see your reflection?"
Catalina hesitated.
"It's getting less shocking. Sometimes I catch my reflection and don't immediately react."
Dr. Martinez nodded, making notes. "That's consistent with our expectations. Adaptation begins around the 1-month mark for most subjects. The study included controlled social interactions. Twice weekly, Catalina would visit the campus coffee shop, grocery store, or library, places where brief, normal interactions would occur. A research assistant always shadowed her, observing from a distance. The first such outing had been terrifying. Catalina had worn the navy skirt and cream blouse, clutching her purse with white knuckles as she ordered a coffee.
"What can I get for you, miss?"
the barista had asked, without a second glance. That simple interaction, being seen and accepted as female without question, had been oddly validating. Not that she wanted to be a woman, Catalina reminded herself firmly. This was for the money, for clearing her mother's debts. Yet, as the second month began, something shifted. The morning routine of dressing and applying makeup became less daunting. Selecting outfits began to feel less like a chore and more like a creative exercise. The yellow sundress, initially the most intimidating piece in her wardrobe, became a favorite on warmer days. "I'm noticing changes in your movement patterns," Dr. Martinez observed during a session. "They're becoming more naturally feminine." "It's just adaptation," Catalina explained, unconsciously tucking a strand of blonde hair behind her ear, a gesture she'd never made before the study. "It's easier than fighting against it." "And how do you feel emotionally?" Catalina considered this. "Less rigid? I don't know if that's the right word. Things that seemed embarrassing at first just feel normal now." In her journal that night, she wrote more candidly. Day 67. I caught myself humming while doing my makeup this morning. When did this stop feeling like a costume? The strangest part is that sometimes I forget what I'm doing this for. The other day, I spent 20 minutes deciding between earrings like it actually mattered. By the 3rd month, Catalina's own hair had grown out enough that the wig was no longer necessary. Monica styled her natural blonde hair into a bob that framed her face, enhancing the changes that had already taken place from the hormone supplements Dr. Martinez had included as part of the study. To provide the full experience, she had explained. The supplements had softened Catalina's features subtly, redistributed small amounts of body fat, and reduced facial hair growth. All reversible changes, Dr. Martinez had assured, once the study concluded. The social outings expanded to include dinner at restaurants, movie theaters, and even a book club at the campus library. Catalina found herself engaging more naturally, the initial anxiety giving way to normal social interaction. During one book club meeting, a woman named Rachel had leaned over and whispered, "I love your blouse. That cream color is perfect with your complexion." "Thank you," Catalina had replied, feeling a warm flush of pleasure at the compliment. "I was actually unsure about it this morning." "Trust me, it's gorgeous on you," Rachel had insisted. Later, writing in her journal, Catalina struggled to articulate the complex feelings from that simple exchange. Day 94. I received a compliment today, and it felt genuine. Not like someone acknowledging the experiment or humoring me, just one woman complimenting another. Why did that make me so happy? Midway through the study, Dr. Martinez scheduled a comprehensive evaluation. Catalina sat in the research office wearing a pale blue dress she'd come to favor for its comfortable fit, her blonde hair now reaching just past her chin. "We're at the halfway point," Dr. Martinez noted, reviewing her files. "Your adaptation has exceeded our expectations."
Is that unusual?
Catalina asked. "Most participants maintain a clear psychological separation between their study identity and their core self. You appear to be integrating aspects of Catalina more thoroughly." She looked up. "Does that concern you?" Catalina thought about it. "Should it?" "There's no should or shouldn't. This is research into exactly these questions." Dr. Martinez set down her pen. "Let me ask differently. Do you still feel like you're playing a role, or does being Catalina feel natural?" "Both, I think. Sometimes I forget I'm in a study, but then something happens and I remember this isn't permanent." Dr. Martinez's expression revealed nothing. "And how do you feel about the eventual conclusion? Returning to your male identity?" The question landed like a stone in still water, sending ripples through Catalina's thoughts. She hadn't been thinking about the end. Somehow, in the routines and adaptations, she'd stopped counting down the days. "I haven't thought about it much," she admitted.
Perhaps you should,
Dr. Martinez suggested. "It's an important part of the research, how participants conceptualize their return to baseline." That night, Catalina struggled to sleep, the question echoing in her mind. The journal entry was brief. Day 103. Dr. Martinez asked how I feel about going back to being Cillian. I don't know. I can't picture it anymore. As the 4th month progressed, Catalina's social circle expanded naturally. The book club became a regular fixture. She formed a casual friendship with Rachel and 2 other women, meeting for coffee outside the structured research outings. Dr. Martinez approved these interactions, noting they provided valuable data on social integration. During one coffee meetup, the conversation turned to dating. Rachel was describing a recent disastrous date when she suddenly turned to Catalina. "What about you? Seeing anyone?" Catalina froze momentarily. Dating wasn't part of the study parameters. "No, not right now. I'm focusing on myself for a while." "Smart," another woman, Beth, commented. "I did that last year after my divorce. Best decision ever." The conversation moved on, but the question lingered in Catalina's mind. Who would she date as Catalina? How would that even work? More troubling was the realization that she was actually considering the question, as if her current identity were permanent rather than a temporary research arrangement. During her next session, she mentioned the incident to Dr. Martinez.
"That's perfectly normal,"
the doctor assured her.
Your mind is creating a complete social identity as part of the immersion. It would be more surprising if you didn't have these thoughts. But it feels like I'm splitting in two, Catalina admitted. There's less and less of Cillian left in my thinking. Dr. Martinez made a note. The compartmentalization of identity is a fascinating aspect of this research. Some participants maintain a strong internal connection to their baseline identity. Others, like you, seem to experience a more comprehensive adaptation. She looked up. Neither is wrong, just different responses to the same conditions. In the 5th month, the research team scheduled a controlled family interaction. Catalina's cousin Diana, her only nearby relative since her mother's passing, was invited to the facility after being briefed on the study. Diana had been skeptical when initially contacted by Dr. Martinez, but had eventually agreed to participate in this phase of the research. Now she sat across from Catalina in the facility's meeting room, eyes wide with disbelief. I wouldn't have recognized you, Diana said, shaking her head. Not in a million years. Catalina smoothed her cream blouse nervously. It's still me underneath. Is it? Diana asked, not unkindly. You seem different. Not just how you look. The study affects behavior patterns, Catalina explained, aware of Dr. Martinez observing from behind a one-way glass. It's been months of adaptation. Diana nodded slowly. Your mom would have been proud, you know, doing something this brave to pay off her medical bills. The mention of her mother hit Catalina unexpectedly. You think she would understand? She always said you had a gentle soul, different from other boys. Diana reached across the table to squeeze her hand. I think she saw parts of you that maybe you didn't see yourself. That night's journal entry was tear-stained. Day 152. Diana said Mom would have understood. What if this isn't just an experiment? What if this is uncovering something that was always there? I don't feel like I'm pretending anymore. I haven't for months. The final weeks of the study brought a flurry of evaluations, tests, and exit interviews. Dr. Martinez spent more time with Catalina, documenting the psychological changes over the 6-month period. Your case will be particularly valuable to our research, she noted during one session. Your adaptation curve shows an unusual pattern of integration. What happens when it ends? Catalina asked, the question that had been growing more insistent in her mind. How do people usually readjust? Dr. Martinez set down her clipboard. There's significant variation. Some participants report a sense of relief at returning to their baseline identity. Others experience a period of adjustment as they reintegrate. She studied Catalina's face. You're concerned about the transition back. It wasn't a question. I don't know who Cillian is anymore, Catalina admitted. I've been Catalina longer than I expected to be. It stopped being a role months ago. That's not uncommon, Dr. Martinez said carefully. Immersive experiences can reveal aspects of self that weren't previously accessible to conscious awareness. Are you saying I might have always been this way? I'm saying that gender identity exists on a spectrum. This study sometimes helps participants locate themselves on that spectrum more accurately. She leaned forward. The reversion to your baseline identity is not mandatory, Catalina. The study only required that you live as Catalina for 6 months. What you do afterward is your choice. The words hung in the air, opening a door Catalina hadn't allowed herself to consider. On the final day of the study, Catalina sat in Dr. Martinez's office for the exit interview. She wore the pale blue dress that had become her favorite, her blonde hair now falling softly to her shoulders.
Officially, as of today, the study is complete,
Dr. Martinez announced. You've fulfilled all requirements, and the compensation has been transferred to your account as agreed. She slid a folder across the desk. These are your reintegration resources, should you choose to use them. Catalina touched the folder, but didn't open it. And if I don't? Dr. Martinez removed her glasses. Then they'll be available if you ever need them. My research isn't about forcing conformity to birth gender, Catalina. It's about understanding the fluidity and complexity of gender identity. She paused. Some of my previous participants have made similar decisions. You wouldn't be the first. People think I did this for money, Catalina said quietly. And I did, initially. But somewhere along the way, you discovered something authentic. Dr. Martinez finished for her. Something that resonated more deeply than you expected. Catalina nodded, tears threatening. I don't want to go back. I don't think I can. Then don't. Dr. Martinez's voice was gentle but firm. The study is over, but your journey doesn't have to be. What will people think?
That matters less than what you know to be true.
Dr. Martinez stood.
Whatever you decide, my door remains open to you, not as a research subject, but as someone navigating a significant life transition.
That evening, Catalina returned to the apartment that had been her home for 6 months. The research team had offered to let her stay for another month while she figured out her next steps. Her mother's medical bills were paid, the crushing debt lifted. The rest of the money would give her time to rebuild her life, her new life. She opened her journal to write the final entry required by the study. Day 183. The study is officially over. I'm no longer required to be Catalina. But I've realized something profound. I never was being Catalina. I was becoming myself. The clothes, the makeup, the mannerisms, those were just tools that helped me find what was buried. I started this for the money, to escape debt. I never expected to find freedom instead. Tomorrow, I'll begin looking for an apartment, updating my documentation, building a life that feels authentic. I'm nervous but certain. For the first time, everything makes sense. This wasn't a transformation into someone new. It was a journey home to who I always was. She closed the journal and placed it on the nightstand. Through the window, the setting sun cast golden light across the room. 6 months ago, a desperate man had signed a contract, hoping only for financial relief. Tonight, a woman sat in its glow, found rather than created. Catalina picked up her phone and called Diana. "It's me," she said when her cousin answered. "I wanted to tell you what I've decided." Diana listened without interruption as Catalina explained. "Are you sure?" she asked when Catalina finished. "This is a big decision." "I've never been more sure of anything," Catalina replied. "This isn't the end of something. It's the beginning." "Then I'm with you," Diana said simply. "What do you need?" "Just what Mom always gave me," Catalina answered, her voice steady. Acceptance. 3 months later, Catalina walked into the campus coffee shop where she'd once nervously ordered as part of a controlled research outing. Now she moved with quiet confidence, her blonde hair styled in soft layers, wearing a yellow sundress that caught the summer light. Rachel waved from a corner table. "Over here!" Catalina joined her friend, setting down her purse and sliding into the chair. "You look great," Rachel commented. "That job must be agreeing with you." "It is," Catalina confirmed. She'd recently started working as a research assistant in the psychology department, not with Dr. Martinez to maintain professional boundaries, but in an adjacent lab. Her psychology degree, once seemingly useless, had found its purpose. "Have you heard from Dr. Martinez?" Rachel asked. After the study concluded, Catalina had gradually shared parts of her story with her close friends. "We had coffee last week. She's publishing the research soon." All anonymized, of course. Rachel stirred her drink. "Do you ever regret it? Signing up for the study?" Catalina smiled, considering the question. "How can I regret the thing that saved me twice? Once financially, and once—" She gestured to herself. "You know what I admire most?" Rachel said. "Not the courage it took to sign up, though that was huge. It's the courage to recognize the truth when it appeared. Most people would have completed the study, taken the money, and gone back to their old lives, even if it felt wrong." "I think I tried to," Catalina admitted. "For the first few months, I kept telling myself it was temporary."
But some truths won't stay buried once they're uncovered.
Outside, the afternoon sun illuminated the campus, where an unusual research study had changed one life fundamentally. Catalina had arrived desperate for financial rescue, agreeing to become someone else for 6 months. Instead, she had found herself, not a performance or an experiment, but the person who had always existed beneath societal expectations and personal fear. Dr. Martinez's controversial study had revealed more than just the psychological effects of gender expression. For Catalina, it had illuminated a path she might never have found otherwise. As they left the coffee shop, Catalina paused to check her reflection in the window. The woman who looked back was no longer a stranger. The blonde hair catching the sunlight, the yellow sundress moving gently in the breeze. These weren't costumes anymore. They were simply the outward expression of what had always been true. She had signed a contract to become someone else temporarily, and discovered who she had always been. The debt that had driven her to such desperate measures was gone, replaced by something invaluable: authenticity. The journey that had begun with 6 months, $50,000, repeated like a mantra, had become something no amount of money could purchase. A life that finally made sense. Catalina adjusted her purse strap and continued forward, no longer counting days until she could return to a former self. That person had served his purpose, carrying her to this moment before stepping aside. Now, there was only the road ahead, and for the first time, she was walking it as herself.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!